What's up, y'all? It's Alicia, and my mandate is to equip, encourage, empower, inspire, and ignite women to influence and impact their world, all for the glory of God. I am a wife, a mom, a ministry leader, a corporate IT leader by day, and a business owner and founder by night. I love all things Jesus, business, and letting my creative juices and imagination run wild. If you have found yourself here, I want you to go ahead, pull up a seat, because this is the PowHerhouse Podcast. On this episode, we're going to hear from one of the amazing authors of the Unveiling Her Devotional, an anthology written by some of the students of PowHerhouse Academy. Each of their stories are packed with insights on how God unveiled their calling in this journey that we call life. The hope is that you will find the missing piece of your life's story through one of theirs. So buckle up and let's get into today's episode. Welcome to the PowHerhouse Podcast. Thank you so much for being on here. I have thoroughly enjoyed interviewing all of the Unveiling Her Devotional authors. It has been such a blessing to just really dive deep into the reasons why or what inspired every single author to write what they wrote. And so I'm excited about your story. I'm excited about all of the listeners to hear what it is that you have to say. So without further ado, let me introduce my guest, you guys. This is Prophetess Alicia McKnight. She is such a sweet and sassy but sassy in a good way. Like, she is definitely such a Southern belle. So we really do have a treat on the podcast today. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and a little bit of your story?
Well, I am truly a Southerner. I have spent most of my life in the South, but I have ventured out into other places. But on a serious side, I am first a woman of God, a woman who has a heart after God. And with that, God has blessed me to be a mom of two amazing children, a son that is 16 and a daughter who is 9. Life sometimes takes turns. And so I did transition from being in an 18-year marriage into this season of where I am a single woman, yet a woman with a pursuit after God. And that's where my heart lies. My heart lies in honoring God, pleasing God. But not only that, playing a pivotal role in the lives of others to where they are able to be impacted in some capacity as well. So I do work in my life outside of in the secular world. I am a business consultant in the healthcare industry, and I spend time in that, but I also spend time in writing. I love spending time with my children and just with family and people, sharing the love and the heart of God in any capacity that I'm able to do. And that is where I loved, and one other thing, I do love to bring light and laughter into every situation. As quiet as sometimes I may come across, I do love to talk, and I do love to share, and I do love fellowship and just sharing the heart and the love of Christ.
I can definitely attest to that, because just as you were speaking, one of the memories that came to my mind is when we were in London. And we were at I believe it was a Mediterranean restaurant, and we grossly overpaid for a bottle of water when we both had water in our bags. Like, what were we thinking? I don't know. I guess we were just thirsty, but the food was good. The food was surprisingly good at the Mediterranean.
But that it was surprisingly good.
Yes. So I can definitely attest that you are someone who loves fellowship. You love being with just really good people, and you're a good person too. So obviously that goes hand in hand. So, what inspired you to write God's Calling, Walk in It?
I would say the inspiration behind that was a personal journey in my own life where I had to take a step back and just listen to the voice of God, because sometimes in whatever season and journey that we are experiencing, that we are walking through, we may feel as if God, although he's near, we may feel like his voice is not as near to us. And so, but when we hear that call, we have that, can step aside outside of ourselves, out of our own thought processes, that's where we can truly hear and recognize that God is speaking and that he's right there. And when he's calling us, he tells us to walk in it. And so I would say the biggest inspiration behind that did come from Isaiah 30, verse 21, that verse talks about the voice of God and him telling us that this is the way and to walk in it.
Yeah.
And so in I would say the greatest inspiration is that for me is that being able to present a message that's transformative, that's not only transformative, but it's also relatable for others. Because although each of us have our own journeys and seasons that we do go through, there's a common ground of overcoming and finding a place and a peace so that we can come and know that we can win.
Hello, guys. Guess what? These PowHerhouse Academy doors are officially opened after months of gathering more resources, more tools, more insights. We are finally ready to open the doors to our newest cohort of Academy students. We have been waiting for you. I am so excited to pour out all that God has for you inside of this academy. Not only will you get the influx of the courses and the classes that we already have in the membership, but we have added some new courses. We've added some new bonus materials. Like, if you want to create a course, community, or digital product, PowHerhouse Academy is absolutely, unequivocally the place that you need to be. So head to anitafavor.com/academy and you will find all other details there. I cannot wait to see you in class. One of the questions that came to my mind was, as you were going through that journey, at what point did you realize that God was truly unveiling his calling to you? Like, what did that look like for you?
So in that season, what I would say is I really spent a lot of time choosing particular verses that as God was given to me. And in that process, as he was speaking to me through scripture, through the experience, he also started highlighting situations in other people and having those other people to come to me, even during that dark moment, to come to me and not come from a place when I was speaking from the hurt and the pain that I was experiencing, but being able to see something on the other side. And so once he started giving me that vision of the other side and what that looked like, whenever someone would come to me, I could always come to them from a lens of positivity of what the other side can be and will be. And so there were different pieces. And I would say in that journey also, God really had me to become more involved in the prayer team at that point in time in my life, with intercessory and also in teaching. And in that, sometimes when we are going through those hard times or those difficult times, challenging times, those are times where either we would choose to break through the barrier of whatever the fear that we're having or the pain that we are experiencing. We either break through or we run further away from those things. And in that moment, what was more transformative that really spoke to what God was wanting me to do in that is that he had me to go head on, to confront and to shed the barriers some of the fears, because sometimes the biggest thing that we may fear is a thing that could potentially, I would say, could potentially happen, but it could also be a wall that keeps us from getting to where God is calling us. And those things are the things that God can use in a great way so that we are transformed, so we can also help transform the lives of others.
Yes, man, you said something so profound that I believe many of us and many of those who are listening are going to be able to take and really apply to their lives. And what you said was that you would look through the lens of what the other side looked like for you. Like, yes, you may be in one spot now, but you know that the other side is better. You know that what God has for you on the other side of this darkness is so much better and so much, and it's so worthy of you dedicating your time and doing what you have to do in God and through God to get to the other side, no matter what it looked like. So can we talk about that just a tad bit more? Like, what were the moments where you really had to buckle down and say, you know what, God, like this other side, I am going there. I'm not going to stay here. I refuse to let my destiny be encapsulated in this moment. I have to get to this other side because I know that the other side truly has the destiny that you have for me.
Well, to start, there's a lady that got placed in my life during this time. She and her husband were leaders of a church, and now she's the pastor of this church. And one time when we were having a conversation, she just asked me, she said, what does your vision look like down the road? What is it that you visualize your life to be? And at first that was a hard question for me, because when you are stuck somewhere or you feel stuck somewhere, let me just say that, sometimes all you can see is what's before you. And when she posed that question, I may not have necessarily had a response initially, but that thing really stuck to me. Those words they were there and they cut me. And it was like, God, I need your help. I want you to help me with a vision. I need something visual so that what my life is capable of being outside of this situation. And so I spent time in that journey. There were many days, many nights where I would wake up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. It was just God and it was me, and we worship scripture. I had journals, I had prayers, I had prayer points, I had all these different points. But what was also important, being able to tune in and listen to God, where I wasn't necessarily doing all this talking myself, but learning how to tune into the voice of God, into that intimacy. And that was a deep time, I would say, of intimacy. And as I was in these times is where God started giving me dreams. He started giving me visions, and he started letting me know that there was something greater beyond what was right there. And not only that, he did not just include me. He included my children. He included different points and different factors. And so with that, I started having this level of not only peace, but joy. And then the realness of God and his presence, and how he so loves us that he wants so much more for us than we ourselves can even imagine. And so where it says that he can do exceedingly and abundantly above all that we can ever imagine or think. And there's one translation that says that even can dream. Those words resonated with me, that, you know what, beyond what my wildest dream is, God can go beyond even that. And he can outdo anything that my mind may have thought of, or even what my own natural father could have done, or even my natural mother could have done. So when I started tapping into not just the Spirit of God, the presence of God, but the person of God, those things became real, because it's beyond the landscape of how we generally are taught to perceive him. It's something so much greater.
That's so, so good, because let me just put it this way. I think we underestimate God so much, but he has so much more in store, and he's capable of so much than we allow him to do. I think we try to put ourselves in the driver's seat when really it's God who needs to be in the driver's seat. And yes, we can act like, you know how when you're a kid and you're on your parents' lap or whatever, and you're pretending to drive the car. And I promise you, you think you going everywhere. Now you're probably going around the neighborhood, the cul-de-sac or something, because your parents not about to be on the road with you in their lap pretending to drive. But if we would even think about it in that sense, like, God, you are at the steering wheel. You are steering and controlling my life. As long as I am obeying you and being led by you, like, I can't go wrong. The other side has to be better because you're driving me there. Now, if I was driving myself there, then we got a problem. But because you're driving me there, we good. So this really does just lends into this next question that I really want to ask, because as I was reading through your devotional, I found it so interesting. And this is why I'm so thankful that every single one of you wrote from so many different perspectives about who you are and who, God was calling you to be and what God was calling you to walk into. But one of the questions that I have is, what voices were speaking to you while you were in that dark season? And how did you know when it was God speaking to you versus your own rational thinking or your own fears, or maybe the voice of your mom or your dad or your friends? Like, how did you distinguish which voice was God's?
Let me tell you something. One of the key things for me, I believe, in that season and even present day, when the voice began to speak opposite of what my flesh desired, or even what my flesh even felt, I knew it was God, because it wasn't feeding what my carnal person was wanting.
Yeah.
It was feeding me what my spirit was yearning and needed. And though that was where I began to distinguish, because you can have conversations with different people, and the people can mean well, whether they're your friends, your family, or whatever. But sometimes when you're hurting, the words that may be spoken are words that will appease your natural person. And it will sometimes feed into maybe anger. And so it can cause some root things to be there that you need to address. And so I knew when, for example, if I was in a state where I was hurt, not only hurt, but there's that anger, and where there was that level of bitterness, but then there was this other part that was like, you have to let it go. You have to forgive no matter what. You do not. And this was so clear to me one day, because I can't even say it was during a quiet time with God. It was just at a moment where I was feeling a certain way. And what God spoke to me, he says, you do not want to be or become the people that did what they did to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
He said, I've called you to be more and to be better. And in order for you to make the difference that I have called you to, this is the trajectory that I'm taking you on. And it was different.
Yep.
And it also dealt with the condition of the heart, so that the heart would not turn sour, would not turn bitter, would not turn cold, but yet love would be there, but love would be there at even a greater level. And not and not looking at every person as someone that's not going to do right, but looking at a lens that there's still hope, that even in them, there can still be good, and good can come out of it.
One of the central themes that I promise you I keep hearing is having the right lens. I'm going to preach that. I'm going to preach that sermon. Have the right lens, because as you were just speaking, especially that last part, it's choosing to look through the lens of forgiveness, choosing to look through the lens of people still can be good, choosing to look through the lens of, yes, I may have been hurt in the past, but everybody isn't out to hurt me. Yes, people may have
Yeah.
done this thing to me, but everybody doesn't want to do that thing to me. And I think we struggle as humans, right? I always say we because I don't ever want anybody to feel like, oh, it's just them. Because in some way, shape, or form, we all have to go through this same process and get to this same place of choosing to look through the right lens so that we can receive what God has for us, because it will close us off. Like, imagine us having, we was just talking about glasses and contacts or whatever. Like, so just imagine if you do have to wear glasses or contacts or whatever the case may be, when you don't have it on, you can't see jack. You can't go to the bathroom. Well, I guess you can, but if it's dark, you're going to fumble your way there, right? Like, it will not be efficient. It will not be pleasant. You might stub your toe. And I have done that recently. It hurt real bad. So I don't advise that. But when you
Right.
have the right lens on, everything is clearer. When you have the right lens on, the correct one for whatever situation. Some people need reading glasses. Some people don't. Some people need like all day glasses or every day. I don't even know what you call it, but I know that some people only need glasses to read. So when you have the right lens, it just makes everything so much more clearer and you receive the benefits from it. So, man, that was good. That's some good stuff you have been unpacking on this here podcast today. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so at one point, and I feel like you may have touched on this, but I always like to go back to things that I feel like maybe people are struggling with, or maybe people are experiencing, and they just need like a real life, a person who've gone through this and show them or guide them or say, hey, this is how I did it. It may not work for you, but this is how I did it. And I'm better because of it. So I know that in your devotional at one point you were talking about your healing journey. And so I want to know, like, what was that process like for you? What did the healing journey look like for Alicia?
So the healing journey for Alicia, I would say it was multi-layered. Let me say that, because anytime when you're dealing with hurt, you're dealing with your natural state that also impacts the spiritual side. So you have to deal with both, and sometimes they have to be dealt with separately in different components, is what I'm saying. So you have the spiritual side where you have the word, you have leaders, you have your trusted individuals within the body of Christ that are helping you through this journey, and and also your time with God where you're tuning in and listening to God. But then there's the other side that requires where you may need therapy. You may need to have a counselor so that you have those other resources that you may not necessarily think about when you're going through your aspect from the spiritual side, that you'll need to also deal with from the physical component. So in other words, there may be action steps that you'll need to take that require you to revisit the root cause. What did this stem from? How did I get here? And what can I do differently so that I'm not repeating these cycles? And so what I would say that I did have books that I used also. I did a lot of, during that time frame, I was doing research. But it had to be with people that I knew in some capacity that were connected to people that I trusted. And I think that in this journey, that's where I also came into a community of people that I would not have even met in person and would not have even known without this connection with a very important leader that you and I are connected with. And I would say that family through those courses, PMP and all of these different components have also played a key part. I think that in our spiritual journey, it's not something that we do. It's a one-off thing. It's a lifestyle. And so each time we have to deal with the layers. And that means that there may be, we may have to pay the cost. Me, what I'm saying, you may have to pay for certain things so that you are getting to your next. It's like when you are learning a skill or a trade, or you're going to college, you're learning these extra, or even a certification, you're learning these things so that you have more tools in your toolbox, that in your toolkit, so that you are able to go forth and you're able to master. Because God has called us, we can sometimes with situations can stay in this victim mentality, but God didn't call us to be victims. He called us to be those that master things. We overcome things. He's called us to be an overcomer. He called us to be winners. He called us to be victorious. And so there's a part that we have to play, and we have to be intentional. And sometimes it's not just enough of us just sitting here every day, just looking at one verse here and one verse there. Sometimes, because there's layers where God is really healing, it requires us to go deeper. And so what played another key part in this process was the community that God supernaturally aligned me with, even the people that he aligned me with. They don't necessarily have to know what you are experiencing. But the key thing is that you are willing to go that extra mile, those extra steps, so that you are good, not only are learning new things, but in the process, you're being healed. And we talk about that lens. It also changes our lens. It changes our perspective. And we gain insight and we gain wisdom, so that we're not just sitting there stuck. Because anytime when we're just sitting there, when we're not in motion, now there's times when God does call us. Let me take a step back. There are times when God does call us to a place to where we're not moving, where there is a time where he wants just that one-on-one time and that time of solace, where we're spending it with him. But then there's other times where he, in the journey, where he's leading us to say, I need you to take these steps. And so I need you to do this. I need you to take motion, and motion requires us to make progress where we're moving forward. And so we need to have forward progress, because if we don't have forward progress, we're either going to stay stuck where we are, or we're going to get left behind, or we even go back further than where we were. And we have to land somewhere. But the thing is that God is calling us higher. He's calling us to go and take different steps. And it may look differently for every person, but I believe that one of the key things is in the process is obedience, listening, being able to take a step back. And also another part to it is being introspective. Because as much as someone else may have done something, we need to look within to make sure, okay, where was my part in this? What could I have done differently? And how can I move forward? Because until we take a look within, it's really hard for us to fully grasp the picture that's on the outside.
All of that was, listen, if people would have written down, I feel like it might have been like 4 or 5 things, four, or five- 4 or 5 things that you can do to help in your healing journey. Like that was so, so, so spot on, especially when you were talking about just being intentional about your education, being intentional about studying and learning in the ways that we do, because you are so right. Like our spiritual journeys, investing in our spiritual journey, investing in the healing journey in and of itself is so,
Mm-hmm.
so, so, so key. And this is how I like to think of it. Either way, we're going to invest. Either you're going to invest your time into nothingness, or you're going to invest your time and your resources into actually becoming the healed, whole version that God has always destined you to be. So you're going to pay a price. You're going to invest. The question is, what are you willing to invest in? Period.
Yes.
So my favorite excerpt in this devotional is however, life experiences had been my biggest lesson in knowing that following my emotions would be a trap that would keep me buried in the dark. But God was calling me. That's like my favorite excerpt because it And it is so God that this would happen, because I just so happened to be talking about being led by our emotions, and how, yes, we do have emotions, but we should not be led by them because they're so fickle and they are definitely carnal. I was telling this to my friend. She was like, "So you mean to tell me you're never led by your emotions?" And I said, "Well, I'm not saying I'm never led. I'm just saying I try not to be because I know that my emotions are not a good and viable source of truth to base any decision on." Like, man, listen, one day today, okay, I want some good old red velvet cake. Tomorrow, I promise you, if I get red velvet cake today, tomorrow I'm gonna be good. I'm not gonna feel like having a red velvet cake slice. So that was mine, but I want you to share yours with us. What was your favorite excerpt?
So you did mention one of my favorite excerpts, because one thing is that we know when you're in the dark, it's very hard to navigate. When the power goes out, it's something different than when you turn, when you turn the lights out and you can turn them back on. It's something different. And it's very hard to navigate when you're in total darkness and you don't have the ability at that point to go and turn a light switch on.
Yeah.
And so for me, in that moment, with that being one of the excerpts that I just really loved, I would say that the other thing was the determination to obey God. Determination takes us to places that is not necessarily easy for us to navigate. When we're determined, we're able to overcome. We're able to see things differently. We're able to see God differently. And we're also able to see people differently.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean that they have changed, but you have, because you were determined to deal with you and to deal with what your struggles were, with your pains, and deal with all these things, because at the end of the day, there are people, whether they're your children, your family, there's so many people watching, even when you don't see them watching. There's people listening when you don't even think that they're listening. And what resonates with me is, I remember this was last year, my son told me, he was like, "Mom," he said, "I just want to tell you," he said, "I am just so proud of you." And I was like, "You're proud of me, son?" He said, "Yes, Mom." He said, "Because I've watched you throughout this time, how you navigated life." And he said, "And how you still kept going, and you loved, and you did not allow it to stop you." And he said more, but it was just like, I nearly broke down in tears, because I'm sitting here and I'm like, these children are sitting here and they're watching, and they're listening when you don't even realize.
Yep.
And so it's important that when I say that part, talking about the determination to obey God, it also takes us to a place in life in our journey that, when we were talking about having a vision to see your life differently on the other side, when you have that determination, you're able to do that, and you're unstoppable. And God has called us to be unstoppable.
Absolutely.
There's not one thing that can stop us. The only thing that can stop us is ourselves. And I believe that in this season that God has us in, is that there has to be a determination to elevate, a determination to go higher, a determination to go further than we did last year or even the day before. There has to be a level of determination that I will not be stuck, and I will not be in a place of disobedience, because a little disobedience can stop us from receiving the greater thing. Even the little bit is the smallest thing. And so for me, that piece, having the determination to obey God, it's critical. And it's critical for our place to win and to seize and to overcome, because God is our blueprint, and He's given us the intricate design, and we are the intricate nature of the design that He's given us. We just have to replicate it in some way, and that is through our determination to obey Him.
Win, seize, overcome. Man, like those three words, though, that might even be the title. I don't know. We're gonna see. that one did something to me. And I think it's because the language is just so strong. As Christians, I feel like we really are super passive as a culture when it comes to certain things. We are very comfortable being in the back seat and just letting things happen. Whereas to win, seize, and overcome means that you have to be active. That's not a passive thing that we could do. Like winning takes activity, winning takes intentionality. And so I think that's why I was like, ooh, hey, win, seize, overcome. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. As we wrap it up, what is the one thing that you hope the readers will get from the Unveiling Her devotional?
The one thing that I hope that they get from this is that they know that they can win, no matter how difficult, no matter what they're experiencing, that they can win. It is left up to them and their determination to obey God and their determination to win, to know that there's greater on the other side.
That's good. That is good stuff, my sis. We have unfortunately come to the end. I can't believe, like, I really feel like there's probably so much more to talk about and share and unpack, but it's just gonna have to be a part two. That's all to it. It's just going to have to be a part two. But before we leave, tell the people where they can find you, what's next for you, what's coming. Is there anything that they need to be in the know about what you got going on?
So I do have things going on and that are in the works. And so what I would say is I am on social media as Alicia McKnight. That's what I am on Facebook. But I'm also on Facebook, Instagram as Divinely Graced by God. And Divinely Graced by God is it's a blessing that will be a blessing in a transformative way for others. And so you can follow me on there. And there's other things I have in the work. So I look forward to connecting with you in those capacities. And you can reach me again at Divinely Graced by God on Instagram, Facebook, and Alicia McKnight on Facebook as well. Yeah, there's some exciting things. And so just stay tuned to the things that are occurring and that's happening. And hey, I just say connect.
Connect. Okay, that's the word of the minute because we've had many words over many minutes, but the word of the minute is connect. Please and thank you. But it was such a blessing to have you on the podcast. We got so much wisdom, so many nuggets. Win, seize, overcome. With you know what? Let me stop because I'm getting my own self fired up again. Just thinking about it. So until next time, everyone, I love you and we'll talk later. Peace.